Archaeologists in Israel have uncovered an ancient Philistine cemetery, and bones from that cemetery could give modern science clues for the first time to the history and origin of an ancient people that was one time one of the key enemies of the Israelites of the Bible. Chris Mitchell brings us that story.
Archaeologists found the cemetery while digging in Ashkelon, one of 5 known ancient Philistine cities.
Now we have a major cemetery right next to one of these 5 cities of the Philistines. So we're sure we've nailed it. We're sure we have a cemetery of the Philistines.
After 30 years of digging in Ashkelon, archaeologists say discovering this cemetery was an astounding way to end the expedition. New findings from the cemetery and artifacts from the excavation are on display here at the Rockefeller Museum in Jerusalem.
The name Ashkelon actually comes from the root shekel, so S-K-L, which means to weigh. The shekel, the new Israeli shekel, is also from there. So the name Ashkelon automatically connects us to commerce.
For years, archaeologists and scholars search for clues to the origin of the Philistines.
We're one of the few sites that can tell the story of the Philistines from beginning to end. They arrive, we think, from the world of the Aegean, and then at the end, in the 7th century, we see a brief renaissance, and then we see their final fiery destruction.
Archaeology professor Daniel Master from Wheaton College says the cemetery contains thousands of remains, of which more than 200 have been recovered. Now, tests on the bone samples from the cemetery that date from the 11th to the 8th century BC could confirm what many long believed, that the Philistines were mariners or sea people and traders who migrated to ancient Israel from the west.
This is going to allow us to see the Philistines face to face and to tell their stories not through the texts of their enemies, as the story has been so often told, but now we'll be able to tell the story from the standpoint of the Philistines themselves.
Harvard University archaeology professor Lawrence Stager started the expedition in 1985. He pointed out that most biblical references to the Philistines pit them as bitter enemies of Israel.
Most of the portrayal you get in the Bible is a negative one, because they want to compare an Israelite against a Philistine. They are the uncircumcised, we are the circumcised.
Philistine has the idea of uncultured or unsophisticated. But what we find is that the Philistines were plenty cultured and plenty sophisticated, and they were quite a cosmopolitan people, an international people.
Other scholars say uncircumcised likely referred to the fact they were idol worshippers. The Philistines lived in Ashkelon for about 600 years.
That's a long time when we think about it in terms of even the United States and how long we've been there. And then finally they were destroyed in 604 BC.
They were destroyed by King Nebuchadnezzar shortly before the Judeans were carried off to Babylon, as described in the Bible. According to archaeologists, the Philistines never returned to Israel, and in fact they were never heard of again. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, the Rockefeller Museum, Jerusalem.